Hi everybody, Ann Teed. Following up on lesson planning, I got a whole pile of incredible, thoughtful, creative lesson plans from my students who are pre-service students. Some are actually in the field, and that squiggly wiggly thing of lesson planning gets us because it's an area that is always morphing and always changing depending on what school you're at and what your administrators want from you and what helps you function within your department, if there's other teachers you have to work with, and also for yourself. So I want to go through these, and hopefully it's helpful. I highlighted and made notes, and all of you are going to be victim to my suggestions. So hopefully you don't take anything personally, because I know that how hard it is, even for myself, to nail down the objectives and the assessment and everything for a lesson plan. And yes, I still do write lesson plans. So I do this with great respect to you, that wherever your feet are, you're learning the process, and hopefully this video will help you. So the comment about who is it for? Who is this lesson plan for? It's really for you to grab and say, all right, what's the vocabulary? What materials do I need? What am I telling for this time and also down the road? You're not going to be a teacher who has new lesson plans constantly. You're going to build a repertoire of lessons with some consistency. So when the next year comes, those third graders who moved up from second grade now get to have this particular pocket of skills and learning. And then they go into fourth grade and fifth grade. And sometimes they go to another teacher in another school if they're going to go to middle school. And you should be able to tell the next teacher down the road all the things that they learned. And it should be pretty concrete, depending on what our knowledge base is, the principles and elements of design. Those are our bricks. And in all of these, I see a couple real concrete ways to go to our bricks of knowledge. We have a discipline that has specific knowledge, but we have a lot of other stuff going, you know, about feelings and expression and interdisciplinary, where we pull in a concept and we use art to create something that might be scientific or historical, an artifact. So know that there's no exact right way to write your lesson plan unless it really works for you and it's what your principal wants to see when they're evaluating, hey, what kind of learning's going on in there. It really, again, is for you to keep track of the skills that child is learning. So when you're done with them, you can say, this is the body of knowledge that I gave them, the skills, the vocabulary, the techniques. So if you took an area like clay, they wouldn't be going to seventh grade knowing everything about clay. You should be able to share with the next teacher, they learned coil, they learned attaching, they learned this, they learned that. And there are listable skills and knowledge and techniques that you should be able to say, this is what they learned, here they are. And also with high school, each year, 9th grade to 10th grade to 11th grade, 12th grade, all different very structured levels of learning that child is going to go through. And so when you're in 6th grade, hopefully you're not going through something that you already learned in 3rd grade. So that's really the art teacher, K through 5 or 6. They're keeping track of that development of all those skills, and that's what this is about. So I'm going to just go through a couple, and I'm not picking on anybody again, but I found pretty much down the line, your objective writing is either really overkill, and that's the way it rolls. I've been the professor for 20 years. Lesson plans, objectives, either overkill or very wishy-washy and not specific. So let's use these to talk about the objectives. And it just might be a little bit of more definition or change of words. So this lesson is about mandalas, food mandalas. They're all great ideas and I love them. So applause at first to get through these. So the student will learn. So we have the student will learn, student will be able to do. So the student will be able to learn about mandalas and their significance to Hindu and Buddhist cultures. Whoa! That's a lot, isn't it? So remember, you're teaching that lesson and all the students are looking at you, and then you stop your intro and they look at you and they go, what do I need to show her? That's your objective. What do they need to show you? So as far as mandalas, what do they need to show you? Is it overlapping? That's a word we have in our art making with mandalas. Is it about color choice? Are you giving them specifics that they have to think about color choice? Is it radial design? Is it large to small? Think of those art skills that are built in a mandala that is round, and you have paper. Sometimes we do mandalas in clay, we do them in the sand. So think about the art skills that are related. I see in this lesson, and I know this person very well, I know she's a great, great art teacher. She does have under concepts and vocabulary, balance. I have to show her balance. Is it there you go. So you're using a keyword in art education and art balance. Radial symmetry. Perfect. Composition. I don't know for this grade what you're really telling them that they have to show you as far as composition. So that one's a little more slippery. Food and culture. Culture might be a word to have to define, but food, it's kind of like, I don't know if you would have a quiz or a test going, can you define food? Think of your concepts and your vocabulary that a child, whatever grade, if it's 3rd grade, 2nd grade, 1st grade, 7th grade, 12th, they can spit back to you in their own developmental language a definition. And that is what your vocabulary should be. So mandala, it's a geometric design representing the universe and Hindu, but well, okay. That whole cultural thing, you're getting into areas of religion and spiritual belief and cultures that are very, very complicated. So if there's a particular thing that you want to pull out of one particular culture, know exactly what they're going to show you and be able to say, well, Buddhists believe this, and so many times in their artwork or in their rituals, they will show this. And so it has to be specific. This is way, way too general for a student will learn mandalas. What about them? What about them? What are they? How are they different artistically? And the significance of Hindu or Buddhist. So that's way, way too large either. So if you're asking them to learn something about a culture, make it be that they can tell you exactly what that small thing is. Can't be too big and broad. So I love that the vocabulary fed me the answers to those objectives, but I had to go back to 2nd page too. So make sure, and I'm going to draw a little diagram of how to do this. Your vocabulary should steer you. Always think of, if you're teaching math or English at the end, hey kids, here's your quiz. Do you know it? It's the same thing. Our vocabulary should be a key in the assessment. Can they tell you? Can they show you? So make sure that that's up front. Alrighty. Here's the next one. We have gratitude stones. It's for another class, same artist. The student will be able to, now we have be able to, let me take another one actually. This one is circular landscape. We got that, maybe mandala again, I don't know. Student will be able to think about, they have to show you. They have to be able to make a list of 3 to 5 things. They have to be able to identify, here's texture, here's rough texture, here's smooth. They have to be able to show through cutting and gluing or whatever. So list, identify, show, illustrate. Illustrate something by using materials. They need to be able to draw something. They need to name something. These are specific actions that we are putting into our lesson plan that the student knows what to show us. I have to show her 3 little sketches. What are those called? Thumbnail sketches on my idea about what texture to put in. So the student will be able to draw 3 thumbnail sketches with or give a list of 4 ideas. So make it concrete, because now the student is looking, okay, I got to give her this, or I got to give him this. And at the end, yep, you gave me 3 of those. Yep. Oh, you only gave me 1. You got to go, you're required to show me 3 ideas or whatever. So when you have be able to, make it measurable, make it concrete. All right. This has to do with landscape. And I love this one because as a teacher, sometimes we grab our own vocabulary of something, our understanding, but maybe we're wrong, or maybe we're not getting the full in-depth vocabulary word, the description of it. So here in this lesson plan, in the objective, it is students will be able to list, very good, qualities of a landscape. That's really pretty general, but in parentheses, outside, elements in the landscape. I don't know what that really means. Different settings for landscape. I don't know what this means. So let's actually go to vocab, concepts and focus, art and perspective, vocabulary, perspective, foreground, middle ground, background. This is for 5th grade. Can a 5th grader give you out of their mouth the definition of perspective? Will they be able to? And it should be that you write it on the board. You write the vocabulary, and they should have a notebook. We are a subject of knowledge and information. They should be able to be quizzed on something to define the middle ground, foreground, perspective, what it is. So as I was saying about our definition may be a little different. What this lesson plan is talking about is actually forced perspective, that things in the front look bigger than things in the back. That's a specific key word, a specific definition. It's not perspective in general. It is, in this whole lesson plan, it's forced perspective. So make sure you're getting the definition. You're using the terms that a child would use at that grade level. If it's 3rd grade, it's going to be 3rd grade words. If it's 11th grade, it's 11th grade words. All right? Good lesson. Needs to be tweaked. All of these need to be tweaked. This one is, let me skip around here. All right. This one is Vessels of Grace. Again, all of these are great. And this is by Katie, who I emailed her that I bought $300 worth of felting material after this exciting lesson. So, because I wanted to do her lesson, it was so great. Student will learn wet felting techniques. Which ones? There's got to be specifics, because I don't know. That's a whole art form. Is there specific, there's a name for a specific one they're learning? Are they learning a few techniques? That needs to be here. They are learning, and I don't know enough about felting to say, they are learning the plum, plum, plum technique. All right, so that needs to be specific, because now I need to see, did they do it? And they're going, I'm showing her I can do this particular technique. Specifics, okay? The student will learn about contemporary textile artists and various processes. Various processes. I don't know. Let's see, 6th to 8th grade. That's really hard, right? How are they going to tell you all these processes? So again, too broad. A brief history of vessels and art history. Whoa, I can't even do that. And I've taken a lot of art history. So that's not something that they're going to learn. Are they learning about ancient vessels made out of fabric? That's specific. You know, the place, the time period. Again, it's age appropriate. Some little kids don't know that we lived 1,000 years ago, right? Did we? And you have to make sure that, again, it's relatable to their base of knowledge. And then maybe contemporary artists. I know contemporary artists working with felt now or in galleries. That's a good thing. So if they ever out in the community with their families or friends, wow, that's a felt sculptural piece. That's made with felt. That's made with wool. That's, you know, so you got to make it be that you're giving them knowledge that they can retain and they can relate to. All right. It's not a broad overview through art history. All right. And then you have see vocabulary, page 4. Well, those vocabulary words, again, they need to be the objectives. Here you have, this is a great lesson. I love this lesson, and it was so well done with a video, too, of how to. Student will be able to, and I highlighted here, sketch ideas. How many? I know what the products were. They were these orb kind of vessels. Do they have to draw 3 different shapes of a big bulbous one, a skinny narrow one? Do they have to sketch 3 ideas of different vessels? They're going to sketch patterns and look for inspiration. So sketching patterns, wool has a specific texture. So I don't know what you mean by pattern. So that's really important. And look for inspiration. Be specific. Is it looking at fruits? Is it looking at gourds? Is it looking at, I don't know what that means. And the student definitely won't. Write down a hypothesis for your vessel procedure. This is 6th to 8th grade. I don't think that they know what a hypothesis is and how to define it and write it down. So some of these are so wonderfully overkill because you guys are so craving to be these incredible educators. Let's scale this all down. All of these, let's scale them down. Provide evidence of artistic choices. My artistic choice may look really ugly to you. So aesthetics, we can't really judge and tell them they're going to, wouldn't put in any kind of, we'll be able to do something aesthetically, because that's a very judgmental thing. So I loved going through that one because it was such a great lesson. And I think, again, a lot of expansion and overkill with things. And that's okay because you're all learning. And even, as I said, sometimes it's hard for me to write. This one is the gratitude stones. Student will learn, and this is exactly how it's written, observe coil building techniques and create a pot or a bowl of their own using coils. That's what they're going to be learning, to observe the coil building techniques. So the teacher must be doing a demonstration. And yeah, they're going to learn, they're going to be able to identify, there's the word, identify coil technique. All right, you can actually see. So that would be, they're going to learn coil technique is a build up of rope coils that are joined together. So what's the definition for this grade level, that 4th grade, that you would use for coil building? That's what they're going to learn, what coil building is, all right? And they will be able to, let's see what they're going to be able to, write about and reflect on gratitude. Well, that's an interdisciplinary thing. We're asking them to be thoughtful and be able to use the English language and write. So I love interdisciplinary. But again, they're going to write about it, reflect, name it. Name 3 things you're grateful for. That's such an appropriate thing for 4th grade that they are grateful for. And the one that follows, I love this, to use symbols or words to describe what they're grateful for. Wow, that's a great thing. So they have to show 3 symbols, 5 symbols, 2 symbols, whatever you know that you're asking them to show you to describe the gratitude that they selected, okay? So those are great. All right, moving right along. This is going to be a long video, so take a break, put me on pause. This is my overview because there was no way I could have graded all these, and some of you it was your first lesson plan. Some of you, you're already teaching out in the field, so that's why I approach it this way. This one is for 11th graders, and it's Sustainable Development Through Sculpture. It's a biggie. It's a biggie, and it's another one. My student who wrote this did an incredible job of pulling in so much information, almost like it was a brainstorming within a department for a whole curriculum for the year. That's how big this baby is. It's a big one. And there's some very, very expanded concepts in here for this 3-part lesson. So this is another one, grabbing and pulling. But what is the student really taking with them when the art closet's shut, the tables are cleaned off, and the student is on their way? What did they learn? They should be able to tell you or show you. And what are they able to do? Are they able to use a new technique? Are they able to overlap and use new glue? Or what? Those 2 things. What was the knowledge and what were the skills and techniques? So here, how to apply research in the artistic process. I'm working on my doctorate. I'm still trying to learn that. So these are so broad and so big. How to create art that conveys meaning to the viewer. How are you going to grade that? So these are really broad and general. About the UN Sustainable Development Goals. They're going to learn about, well, yeah, we could totally learn about the UN's sustainable development. I love that. I'm all about taking care of the planet. But they need to be able to identify and name some of those goals, all right? You can't just keep it that broad thing. They're going to know about it. What are they going to know? What are they going to be able to be tested on? What can you quiz them on? Name 3. We are a discipline. We're not just this squiggly wiggly, all right? To use various types of media to portray the goal they choose. So they're picking a goal, but they're using various types of media. That's a dangerous thing. They're 11th graders. Are they painting? Are they using clay? Are they doing sculpture? So that is a very broad thing. Are you asking them to combine different media? Are you asking them to try new materials? Is this a printmaking lesson and everybody's got brayers and ink and you are asking them to pull in another art form? If it's, gluing different organic materials. I don't know what that means. To use various types of media. This could be photography. This could be, so again, 2 broad. Excellent lesson though. Keep in mind, I am not criticizing these, ripping them apart. I'm saying they're really thoughtful and wonderful, but we are at the point of lesson planning that we got to make it measurable and doable so our students can move through and we know where they are, okay? This one, and I remember when this was presented, I said, was this for college? Is this? And it's the Giving Bowl, but it was such a big overview. This was a whole college course in one lesson, and it was done by Elizabeth, and she really went to town on pulling together her love of clay and putting this big overview for high school. It's really a curriculum, and even that would have had to been broken down to specific skills that the students are learning. They're going to learn how to coil. Think about kids learning how to do coil, basic. Got to start with a certain size clay. You got to learn, roll it on a particular surface that it doesn't stick. You know, all these things, they are broken down into sequential steps of what it takes to use those materials and come out with some kind of product. So she has here a combination of building with different techniques, a big overview of different making vessels, using different building. She even built in glazing and presentation. So this is a college course, which I'd like to take. This one is about tinfoil texture collages. All right, objectives. That's where I'm going to today, the objectives. Student will learn to identify and compare textures through experimentation with textures in their collage. So we're making a collage. And we got that building block in the arts of texture. I love it. I love it. I'm seeing a specific building block here. And at this grade, second grade, they're going to be aware this is texture. Texture is, and what would be their definition of it? The way something feels. And visual texture is the way it looks. Is it bumpy? Is it smooth? Is it? So there's a whole lesson about what is texture. And the objective, again, is students will learn to identify and compare. All right. Are they identifying every texture? Make it measurable. You taught the lesson. They're experimenting with different textures with collage. Oh, so it's visual texture. And so that's using flat photographic images of magazines or whatever. So they have to be able to describe how they look, and that some may be very bumpy looking, some are smooth, some are glossy. Also, it's a texture. That's a visual texture. They need to identify, you use the word identify and compare, 3 or 5, and they also compare which one's smooth, which one's bumpy, which one is slick. Kids come up with their own words too. So the objective is texture, identifying the differences, which ones are similar, which ones are different. The next objective is students will be able to create a collage using at least 4 different textures. That's great, because now after they're experimenting and they're sorting, these are the rough ones. You can even have a whole thing. They're collecting and collecting, and then they have to decide which ones they're going to put into their final collage. And this is a tin foil. So now you even have a material. Oh, they must be rubbing. I missed that. So they're making different textures and they're rubbing against different things. So student will be able to create a collage using 4. All right. So that's a really good objective. And let's take a little further. Do they have to be very different textures? Do they have to be very, are they like? Are there, in this collage, are you asking them to do certain sections that are very smooth? So it's not photography, it is tin. I missed that up on top. Very smooth as compared to the very rough. So it's not just to show texture. Are you having them do the concept of organizing? Even in second grade, they have to show you some rough, show you some smooth, show you some little bumpies. That's what they're learning. They're learning differences and things and similarities. So that's great. Sorry I missed the tin foil. Very exciting lesson. I love materials, so that I love to work in tin. I think that's great for second graders. All right, this one is Model Magic Sundials, interdisciplinary. Now you're going into science. You're also going into history with this one because you're looking at Egyptian 1500 BC Egyptian sundials. So how exciting is that to be able to pull in art history and culture and science? So let's look at the objectives. Student will demonstrate the ability to follow directions. That is a built-in behavioral learning skill, behavior. So that wouldn't be an objective. We are not asking, that's not the goal of our lesson. That day they're gonna follow directions today. And did you follow? Yes. How well? That's a built-in. So I shouldn't see that as far as an objective. That's built in. Just like even teamwork and being able to clean up. Those are built in. Those are just, you know, side ones that are always pulled in. We're always teaching them to respect the studio and the materials and their co-workers at the table and talk about it and share ideas. So that wouldn't be an objective for that lesson. Next one is students will learn more understanding about clocks and telling time. Very broad, but right on the right track. This is 4th to 6th, which is a big age range. So let's take 5th grade. What do 5th graders need to know about clocks? They can tell time, right? I don't know in this day and age, do they know how to do the hands on the clock? I don't even know anymore. Hopefully they do. So they're going to learn more understanding, or are we going to just have them be able to tell us that clocks have a purpose? Some have numbers that spin, some have hands, and that's where you have to pinpoint and you have to define what that knowledge is very specifically. You teach it, and now they have to be, if it was a quiz, clocks tell time with numbers, and this specific one is with numbers and the sun, the rotation of the sun. So that's pretty cool. And telling time, why, you know, the movement, the changing of this goes to a cycle of a day and the sun, the movement of the sun and the moon. So there's a lot here. What do you expect those 5th graders to really digest and be able to tell you back? Think of them going home and they're sitting at the table and, you know, somebody goes, so what'd you learn? What are they going to say? What are they going to say? I learned about ancient time telling. Well, what about it? All right. Here's a next one, very broad. Students will use motor skills to sculpt and indent their clay. Again, it's a built-in thing. We're building skills with fine motor, and it wouldn't be an objective here about using motor skills because that's part of what we do. And to sculpt. If that's it, that's not something that's an objective for this particular lesson. Next one, students will get the chance to personalize their creation with paint and paint pens. Now we have a material. Are they going to learn how to use paint pens? What does a 5th grader need to know about a paint pen? All right, so maybe those are skills that at this grade, not 2nd, not 7th, 5th grade, you're introducing paint pens and on the material, how they are used. All right, what are you asking them to do? Are you asking them to fill in a big area? Are you asking them to make lines, squiggly lines, you know, zigzag? Are they doing shape, flat shapes? What about the paint pens? So it does say here that personalizing, if they're doing their name or they're doing a symbol, that needs to be here, using paint pens. And then we know that the skills of using a paint pen properly, if it's, you know, pushing and using the nib properly, covering it, whatever. What is it about that material that those 5th graders are learning? That could be the objective. Here we have another one. We'll learn what aesthetics they think of or when they're thinking of with Egypt. So we wouldn't use the word aesthetic there. We would have things, what did you notice about the Egyptian artwork? What things did you see? Were there certain shapes? Were there certain symbols, definitely symbols that you could say, well, that's Egyptian art as compared to Native American art, compared to Greek symbolism on Greek urns and whatever it is, contemporary earth art. You know, we're starting to build an awareness of culture art, or different time periods of art. So if you, at 5th graders, it could be to identify or to describe some of the things they noticed about this specific art you showed them. And it's not it's not a forbidden thing to say in the works of and listing the art that you showed them, the student is able to identify and point out symbols or recognizable lines and shapes in that artwork. It doesn't have to be the broad thing, Egyptian art. Even if we're doing a lesson on Mary Cassatt or, you know, Picasso, looking at the work, they would identify, like Peter Max, if you know Peter Max's work, very bold lines, black lines outlining big, bold colors. That's what you would, you know, a fifth grader can even identify the technique, the style of Peter Max. Very black lines, thick, bold black lines, and bright, bright colors. Bold and simplified images. Not a lot of depth, flat, colorful shapes outlined by black. All right. Okay, so that's it. And so I want to do one thing. Now, that's not everybody's lesson plans. We had so many last semester. And again, I'm sending this in the next semester because I was trying to really figure out how to do. So I got a lesson, and I'm trying to figure out how to start it with the objectives. Well, the objectives might actually come, so I'm going to just do, the objectives might be after the fact. So what do I want to make? Sometimes it's the object that, oh, I want to make a sundial, or I want to make a pinch pot. So that might be, you know, what they're making. What? Okay, the object. Okay, so make a map. Take a piece of paper like this. And then, what are the vocabulary words? What are the vocabulary words? So, what are they making? What are the vocabulary words for that grade in their words that they'd be able to write down from the blackboard or the whiteboard on in their journal, in their sketchbook, whatever. All right, these are going to come later. All right, how are they making it? What materials? What materials? Are they doing paper? Are they doing clay? Are they doing inks? Are they doing, okay, materials? And remember, I thought of the object first. So now I'm brainstorming. Ooh, do I want them to do magazine images and tissue paper and all different kinds of paper? But then I want them to go outside and find natural little sticks and weeds. And so materials, think that out. All right, and then techniques. List that, brainstorm that out. Do you want them to learn one? You know, what are they learning? Is it coil? Is it just coil? Then let it just be coil. All right, if it's collage, there's so many. I remember teaching years ago, there were so many broken down skills in a lesson for collage. There was cutting skills. There was ripping. I have a teacher from me, a mentor from me. We just rip. We're not allowed to cut. And we go through magazines and paper, and it's an intense weekend workshop that I incredibly love doing collage. Only in the past couple of years, because this teacher made it so exciting and so sophisticated for me. So there's ripping, and then, okay, so there's ripping, there's cutting. Glue. If I'm doing a thicker paper, or there's different glues. So there you go with the materials. Is there certain glues? Is there certain scissors? Are there certain pencils? Are there certain paints? Are there certain other objects that we're rubbing or doing? So that's, you know, build this map first, and then the techniques we're going to do it. And after you have all this map, then you think of the objectives. What is this fifth grader learning in this lesson? What do they already know? What do they already know? The pre-skills or knowledge. That's important. And a couple of years ago, when I was teaching and going out with student teachers. It was a big thing to have a pre-lesson for the teacher. We don't do it anymore. We don't have enough time for that. We would have the student, my student teacher or the teacher, called the teacher, do a pre-lesson to see where the kids were. Fourth graders, they don't know how to really use rulers. I had a student teacher who had a total breakdown because she had a whole lesson. I think it was third grade. She started doing the lesson and no one knew how to use a ruler. And she just totally started crying. And I was like, it's so good, let's do this. So you might come up with that. Like the kids are not, you don't know what their skill level is. And so that pre-skill, that pre-knowledge, that's important. So a lot of times we're guessing because we don't have the luxury of having a pre-lesson. And when you're doing a presentation, even, you know, Egyptian, this and that, you're feeling out what they know too. They are your recipients of what you're teaching them, but they're also giving you feedback while you're teaching, while you're presenting, and while they're working. You know, a student may come up with a whole new idea that shifts the whole lesson. I love that when you're teaching something and the student starts building off the page and breaks the border, the boundary, and you're like, whoa, and the other kids are looking, I want to do that too. Can I do that? Is that allowed? Yeah, here's a new thing that the child introduced or the brainstorming they come up with. It should never be that we are all making this. What do you think? What do you think? Have them generate the approach, bringing their knowledge and their skills into it. You're going to have the kids who are very limited with their skills and their knowledge of materials. They might not have any art supplies at home at all. All right? And then you have some that have been groomed to be these great artists by 4. So this map, all right, the objectives, and that comes last. Object, what are you making? And you know what, teachers? What are you making? It's all about what you're inspired to make with them, what you think they should learn, and what supplies you have in that closet, right? Or what you have access to. So what do you got to make something with? And if your school district, your building has, all the 5th graders get to make masks. So that's part of being a teacher, to plan ahead. And sometimes you don't have a lot of materials and it's like, okay, what are we making? But you know in your curriculum you have to teach something with this or something. Some of you will have very strict districts of here's what we're going to teach for the year, built into what they'll know from pre-K through 6th. So, and sometimes it's just free and open. A lot of private schools, it's up to the teacher. And it might be cartooning, and the kids draw a cartoon, and then it's blown up on these big cardboards and painted and put in the yard, and they do a play with their classroom teacher. Be inspired. Don't just make something to teach a skill. Make it very, very exciting. Think about if you would want to make it at that age. And why is it going to be inspiring? Because think of the kid. If they are like, wow, what's their world about? And also their interests. And so something you might want to do, they might not have ever heard of it or been inspired to do it, and you're bringing it, but bringing it in a way that you're launching them into using this material. So give some wiggle room. This has been almost a 44-minute video. But I covered a lot of ground, and I know this was the semester after to give you this feedback, but this is going to be given to every course I teach because it's an area that we know as a college you are going to really learn during student teaching, being paired up with your cooperating teacher, your mentor teacher, and then also when you get your own job, you're going to figure it out what you need as a practicing teacher, or what the district says you have to do, or what your principal says, hand this in at the end of the month. I want to see your lessons. I don't want to see 10 pages of it. I want to see this. So it is something that's different for every teacher, every school, every classroom, and it's going to serve you to serve your students. Please keep in touch with me if you have any questions. If there's anybody who wanted, I think there's one student wants me to very specifically go over their lesson. I'm going to get to that. But if you need help with this, I am here to help you, even if you're not enrolled in any class this semester. All right, carry on. I think I got my objective of this video.